Shawn, thank you very much for joining us today. How are things in Vancouver?
Things are really good. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, James.
Thank you for the support. So, Dolly Varden Silver is located in northwestern British Columbia in a region referred to as the Golden Triangle. It's a very prolific mining region. Why don't you just start with a brief overview of the company for those who might not be familiar with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, like you said, Dolly Varden is located in the prolific Golden Triangle, an area that's one of the richest for silver and gold on the planet. It's got a rich mining history that exceeds the last century. Famous mines are Brucejack, which is owned and operated by Newmont. You've got the past producing Eskay Creek deposit, which was operated by Barrick. And so where Dolly Varden sits in the triangle is we're at the southern end of the Golden Triangle. And what we were was we were a company that had two past producing mines. The Dolly Varden silver mine, which was the richest silver mine in the British Empire when it was in production, and the Torbert mine, which was Canada's third largest silver producer. Um, the strategy that I've brought in, I've been running the company for 5 years. When I took over the company, we were a $20 million market cap. And what I've done is I've brought in capital, I've brought in a team that are regional experts, and we've made some accretive acquisitions. So today, the valuation of the company is 300 million. We've got a total of 7 deposits. We've got a very significant and strategic land position in the Golden Triangle, which includes a road to Tidewater. And there's some great infrastructure that surrounds the project. But really, this has been a company that has been highlighted because it is a rare company. Silver is scarce, and Dolly Varden represents about one of 15 silver opportunities where you've got your 11 primary producers, and then you've got 4 companies that I've identified as plus $200 million market caps. And where Dolly Varden differentiates itself from its peers is not only do we have pure high grade silver, but we have it in a safe jurisdiction. And so we're in a great area. We've got treasury, we've got some great shareholders, and we've got a high grade project in a safe jurisdiction.
And another related point that's very important is the permitting process. And maybe you can just speak to that and how the government of British Columbia is in terms of permitting.
Yeah, listen, BC permits mines at half the time that the global average. So, we've got a permitting process that's approximately 3 years from beginning to end. And there's been a number of projects. Artemis's Blackwater project. I mentioned Skeena's Eskay Creek. And so there's been a number, Ascot's Premier. There's been a number of projects that in recent years have been permitted. So it's really, really simple in BC. If you respect water and you respect local communities, you get your permits in a timely manner.
So that's a good overview of the region. I want to move on now and focus more on your deposits. And when it comes to mining, size and scale is everything. And the Kitsault Valley Trend is 15 kilometers long with many separate and distinct deposits. Maybe you can just tell us what work has been done and what deposits you've been focused on in recent years.
Yeah, so you've really got to go back 100 years, actually more than 100 years, and look at how the region started. And what you need to appreciate is, there was a different type of explorer, prospector, miner that existed, around 1919. I was actually former U.S. President Herbert Hoover who opened the mine in 1919. But what you have to appreciate then is there was no hydroelectric power, there were no paved roads, there was no deep water seaport. You couldn't buzz around on a helicopter to remote areas, and really glaciers covered the area. So the area didn't see a lot of work. It was in a corner of the country that bordered Alaska. It was snow covered, and it's not like the Abitibi, Timmins, Red Lake, or a camp like some of the camps you see in Nevada. This is an area that, despite the 10 million year mineralizing event that brought in these incredible deposits like Brucejack, it's an area that's been really untouched until recent years. And so, what my strategy was to go in and systematically consolidate a land package. And that's what we've done. We've taken some historic past producing deposits and we've augmented them with some neighboring deposits. I believe that what worked in the past in British Columbia will work in the future. So just south of our project, you have a site referred to as Antiochs. It was the site of a smelter. So back throughout the 1950s, when the Torbert ore left Dolly, it would go down to Antiochs. And so my point here is the way the North operated in the past was as a hub and spoke model. And I think we're going to move back to that model. The Golden Triangle is filled with high grade deposits. And my goal here is to create an opportunity where we've got a commanding land position with prospective ground, mixed in with some past producing high grade deposits, also some 43101 compliant resources. And that vision, that strategy has led to share price appreciation. It's attracted some of the most notable investors in the space, including Eric Sprott, including Fidelity, including corporates who want the metal like Hecla. And we've seen the business grow from a $20 million valuation to over a $300 million valuation. We've been very, very supported, and we haven't had to do a down round in terms of, every financing we've done, 30 cents, 45, 70, a dollar, $1.25. And that's been on the back of accretive acquisitions, good shareholders, and most importantly, scientific breakthroughs that our discovery team has made.
And Shawn, you spoke about the market cap, how you took it from 20 million to 300 million. What about ounces and silver equivalent ounces? How much have they
Yeah,
grown over that time period?
that's really why the growth has happened. It's not the doubling of the silver price from $16 to $30. It's been on the back of when I first came into Dolly, there was this idea that Dolly could never grow to 100 million ounces. And we now have, on a silver equivalent basis, about 140 million ounces silver EQ. And that doesn't include any base metals. So that's 50% silver and 50% gold. So on a metal basis, it's 65 times more silver than gold. We've got 64 million ounces of silver, and we've got a million ounces of gold. And that doesn't account for about 135,000 meters of drilling that has been done in recent years. And so those numbers may be understated.
And I'm sorry, did you say 135,000 meters?
Correct.
And what deposits have you been focused on? Where did you do all
So
that?
yeah, and part of that drilling was de-risking drilling. We did in 2022, we did about 18,000 meters of infill drilling at Homestake to bring up our confidence in the inferred resource estimate, to show that there was continuity, there was grade, and we really have been very, very happy with the results that we've received from Homestake. So we focused on Homestake Main, Homestake Silver. We've done a lot of work at Torbert, but the most exciting part of the Dolly has been the rediscovery of the Wolf deposit, which is primary silver. If you look at silver companies, 1 out of every 4 silver cos is primary silver. Most silver comes as a byproduct. So what Wolf represents is pure, high grade, potentially bulk mineable silver. So Wolf has been an exciting area. And then the other meters have been allocated to regional exploration. So in addition to the 7 deposits, We believe that there is a periodicity, a repeating pattern, that every 1,400 meters, there's a break in that 15-kilometer trend that you identified, that north-south trend, that east-west, there are these cross-cutting structures that is bringing in mineralization. And so in 2024, we drilled a vein called Moose and a vein called Chance. And these are exactly 1,400 meters apart, and they're exactly 1,400 meters away from Torbert. Wolf, and Wolf is exactly 1,400 meters away from Torbert. So I think that it's not about what we have. It's about the potential to find a lot more. And that's why, we're about to launch it's a fully funded and it's a very robust drill program.
And before I ask you about the drill program, are you able to connect these deposits?
That's
So
a great question.
instead of having
Yeah,
like two or three, is it able to be one large, massive deposit?
that's the idea. The idea is whether they're individual deposits and we employ that hub and spoke model, or if what our technical team believes, and if they're right, it could be pretty powerful. So what's happening is at the Wolf deposit, which started as a high-grade surface expression, as we started drilling it deeper and deeper and deeper, and what's interesting is no explorer in the past had ever looked at it because it sits below a sedimentary cover. So all the exploration, the modern exploration tools like surface mag, geochem, it wouldn't penetrate the sediments. So we took a risk, a calculated risk, that the Jurassic Age Hazelton Formation persisted below the sediment cap. We drilled it and we hit. And what we found is as we went incrementally deeper, the veins would swell and the grade would get more intense at depth. So that 300 gram per ton, which is a great grade for a silver deposit, 10-ounce silver is high grade. It starts to go 400, 500, 600 grams over 15, 20-meter wide intercepts. But what's exciting is a mile away, 1.4 kilometers away, you've got the Torbert deposit, and it's the same dip, it's the same geometry, it's the same plunge. And if these two systems are coming together, and I've experienced in my 22-year career in exploration, when you have two systems coming together, you can get something pretty special in terms of grade and tonnage.
And we have drilling season coming up soon. What are your plans for the upcoming drilling season?
So we're finalizing those plans. I've got a news release that we're drafting that's going to detail the plans. But what we're looking at is an initial 35,000 meter drill program. That 35,000 meters is looking to be allocated at Wolf, where we're looking to put out a new resource estimate. And the goals at Wolf are to infill the deposit. So we've had some ambitious, 200-meter step outs, 120-meter step outs. We want to infill those so that we can bring it into a compliant estimate. But we also want to continue to expand and extend the deposit, still open. And then we want to take some big step outs, 800-meter step outs in between Torbert and Wolf. So Wolf is going to see a lot of focus. And then up at Homestake, where we drilled 30 meters of 13-gram gold, 34-gram gold over 12 meters, 100 meters of 2-gram gold and 200-gram silver. We're going to also focus a big focus up at Homestake. So you've got a third going into Wolf, Homestake, and a third focused on more regional efforts at places like Moose and Chance that are showing a lot of promise.
You mentioned earlier that one of your shareholders is Hecla, and I'm curious, how did they get involved and how involved are they?
Hecla has been one of the most supportive shareholders that we've had. In 2023, they increased their stake in the company significantly with a large investment. They have become a 12% shareholder by investing capital in exchange for securities. Um, they have a ancillary rights agreement, which allows them, as long as they stay above 10%, to maintain with a participation right. They have the right to a board member. So, I've got an incredible board of directors, which includes James Sabella, who is the former CFO of not only Hecla, but also Coor. And so Jim is an incredible board member who is their representative. And then we've got a technical committee that is made up of a Hecla representative. So Rob Davidson is their rep. So as management finalizes the drill program, we present it to that technical committee, which includes Hecla. Hecla's got operating mines. They've got a long history, a century history of operating and producing high-grade silver. They're America's #1 silver producer. And so we get to leverage those technical expertise, and they get to chime in with their knowledge. And so they're quite involved.
I want to move on now and ask you about your balance sheet. Cash is the lifeblood of any exploration company. How much cash do you have on hand, and how will you allocate it in the coming year?
We've got 32.5 million Canadian dollars. And the idea here is we're leveraging 20 million of that into exploration. And so, we've had a history over the last 5 years of spending about 88% of the money we raise from our shareholders and putting it in the ground.
Shawn, you have said in the past that you want to make Dolly Varden a top 10 silver equity. Maybe you can tell us how you will do that.
Yeah, listen, when I came into Dolly, you couldn't recognize it from the 100 peers that it appeared to have had. And the strange thing that I saw when I looked at the company back in 2020 was it was trading at half the value of the peer group. So the peer group at the time was trading at 75 cents per ounce USD in the ground, and Dolly was trading at 37. So it was lagging the peers. It was, maybe 200 of 200 silver coats. And today, I would argue that it's top 15. Some could argue, even higher than that. And where I come up with that number is I talk about the 11 primary silver producers. I talk about the 4 companies that have plus $200 million valuations that are advanced explorer developers. And so I think we've positioned the company with that ascent from 20 million to over 300 million. We've positioned it as a top 15. My stated goal 5 years ago was to, number one, get to over 100 million ounces of silver equivalent. We accomplished that. The second goal was to make it a top 10 silver equity. We're not there yet. So I think if we continue to follow our plan, which is bring in high-grade inventory. Now, how do we do that? We can do that through discovery. We can do that through acquisition. I think if we continue to march forward and do that, Dolly Varden will become a top 10 silver co. And I've studied Pan American. I've studied First Majestic. I've studied Coor and Hecla. And what these companies have had to do, because we've been in an environment where, the silver to gold ratio for decades now has been, really out of whack. They've had to be agnostic in the metal they're producing. And so what I'm really saying is most of the silver cos are not producing silver, right? There's a silver component to their production. So as I've studied how other silver cos have been built, and so what makes them silver cos? It's their mineral inventory, it's their reserves, it's elements of their deposit. So what I'd like to do, success for me, would be for Dolly, and specifically the Kitsault Valley, to be in a portfolio where it was in a pipeline of other assets. And whether we get there through one of the top 11 acquiring us, or we get there through becoming one ourselves, That's where I would like to see this project ultimately live. And as a team, as a management, as shareholders, we're not going to stop until we accomplish that goal. And we've had a successful 5-year run, and we've done it at a time where it's been difficult. There's been volatility. I speak to you on a day where the silver to gold ratio is like 100 to 1. We have done an incredible job, and I give all the value to the shareholders, to the scientists, to the board, to the financiers, and again to the prospective nature of these rocks in the Golden Triangle, and ultimately the local communities who've allowed us to come in here and create jobs and to advance this project. And the results speak for themselves.
Shawn, as we wrap up, you've already provided a lot of detail on what you and your team will be doing in the next few months, but maybe you can just summarize for investors on what sort of information they should be looking forward to in the next few months.
Well, it's interesting. We're pretty innovative. I believe that you have to be creative, and we recently put up on our website a an IR chatbot. Now, we're all available. My number's there, my email's there, and I love talking to people, but not all prospective investors have the time or the desire to talk to management. So we created an IR chatbot. And if you were to go onto the site right now and say, what are the upcoming catalysts? The chatbot in seconds will tell you, number one, the company just announced its application to uplist on the NYSE American Exchange. The chatbot will tell you that the company is in the process of finalizing the drill plans to the 40,000-meter drill program that's fully funded. And so really the way I think if you're a prospective investor and if you've decided that you want exposure to silver and you appreciate that, silver, 50% of silver today is being consumed by industry, and you see that the shortages we've had for the last 4 years. And if you're wanting silver exposure, what Dolly Varden does is it gives you that in a safe jurisdiction. We've got a resource, we've got treasury, you're investing alongside some of the best shareholders on the planet, and we're going to go out and drive a lot of energy and catalysts and judge us on our 5-year history. There's a slide in our corporate presentation that summarizes that 5-year history, and you'll see a share price that's moved from the bottom left to the top right. But I think we're only a third of the way through that journey, and that's if we stop here. And we've got the desire and the ambition to keep growing.
Yeah, I love the chatbot idea. Can you tell how many people actually use it in the course of a day?
Yeah, and listen, we just put it up 10 days ago. We've already been into, and we haven't advertised it. We haven't, and we've already had, as of yesterday, about 500 meaningful interactions, 500 conversations. No, it's an incredible technology. And yeah, it's something that I think all companies should be using.
100%. And I love the idea that you have your name and your number up there on the website. 99.9% of CEOs do not do that, but you have your name and your contact information there. So you're making yourself totally available to shareholders and potential shareholders. So I applaud you for that. I want to thank you very much for spending time with us today and providing an update on Dolly Varden. Thank you.
Grateful to be on. Thank you, James.